I want one more picture. By the way, I'm going to close this image. I no longer need it. And it asks me if I want to save changes. No, I don't. I want to keep the original image exactly like it is, so I'm going to say no. Now before I move this other picture, I've decided I don't want to use this one. I want to use the one I've been in the tube. I want that frame around it, and if I look at the frame, let's find that frame real quick. It's a square. So that means I need this picture to be cropped to a square shape. So now that I've selected this image, I can tell because it's highlighted at the top, I'm going to select crop. And with this crop tool now, we're going to have to make sure that we are cropping it as a square. There are a couple ways of doing this. I can either specify the exact dimensions that I want, but since I don't really know, I can look at this one and see it's going to be about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6.5-ish. I can go ahead and do that, or I can just set the resolution the way it is. So get rid of this. This is a pretty high resolution image. You can see it's 16.7% as it is right now. It's pretty big. And just make sure that it's about 6 by 6 wide, and I should be fine. It will just make sure that it's a square pretty much. So you can see here it's a square, and I want it the whole width of the picture. So I just got to make sure that I cover the whole width of the picture, and there we are. Select that, done. So now I want to move my picture over into my layout. So I'm going to select my move tool, or you could select V and drag and drop it. Now notice it's pretty large, and this is a lot bigger than 6 by 6. Remember, I did not set the resolution, so this is a lot bigger than the 300 resolution would be. That's okay, I can resize and move this later. So let's move the frame over. See how the frame is quite a bit smaller. So I'm going to select my picture, make sure that it shows the transform controls. That's the all the way around here, so I can move it. And while selecting Shift to maintain the ratio proportions, I'm going to select Shift and resize my image so it fits in my frame. And there it is. That's what I want. So I just have to select the check mark to make sure that it stays selected how I want it. Now I'm going to move this other picture down here a little bit, and that's where I'm going to want it as well. So I just want something about like this. So far we've changed the arrangements of our windows, cropped our images, and moved them into a new layout. One thing I want to show you is the history palette right here, history. And if you don't see it up, you can go to window, and then select history, and you'll be able to see it. And what this shows you is all the processes you've taken so far. So if I want to undo something, I can select this over here. Right now you can see the last thing I did was move. So if I go back 1 step, I undo that move. If I go back 2 steps, I undo that free transform, and so forth. I can just keep undoing or redoing what I've done. So now I'm back to where I am. The other cool thing you can do is snapshot. So here at the bottom you've got a little camera. If you take that picture, it will save a snapshot of what you've done. And now if I change something, say I move this picture over here, and I move the frame over, and I move this picture over, and I want to see if I like it better this way, then I can snapshot it again. And at the top here, I can move back and forth between my snapshots to decide which one I prefer, and I think I like this one better, so I'm going to stick with this one. Now the last thing I'm going to show you today is how to save your images. So let's go to our saving menu. I'm going to go ahead and close out all of these other files. Again, I'm not going to save the changes to my pictures, and make this fit the whole screen. So this is my image, my layout that I've created, and this is not the full size. This is obviously a rendition of it because remember we are at 300 pixels and our screen's at 72. So when I go to File and Save, I have to first of all decide where I'm going to save it. I would normally save mine under my Documents under my Crafts, Digital Scrapbooking, and then under Jewels I have different scrapbooks. So here I'm going to save this under Lund Family 2009. And you could go ahead and create a more specific folder for the month if that's how you're doing it, or for a person, or however you're going to do it. For right now, I'm just going to save it here as Tubing the Canal. And notice it's a PSD, a Photoshop file. That means it's going to maintain the layers, and so I'm going to be able to move my images around later. If I decide to come back and add text and do different things to it, I can, because I am saving it as a Photoshop file. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. It's going to ask me if I want maximum capability. Yes, please, and then hit OK. So there we go. It's going to take a second and render it all and save it. Now, to print, I don't actually print a Photoshop file. I would print a JPEG. So I'm going to go to File, Save As this time, and I'm going to save it as a JPEG. And I just change the style here. Make sure I select JPEG. There it is. It's going to call it copy because it's a copy of that other one, which is fine, and hit Save. It'll just save it in the same place. Now this is going to ask you for the quality. 10 is pretty much the most you need. It goes up to 12, but anything after 10 is just extra information that takes up more space that you don't need. So I'm going to hit OK, and there it goes. It's going to flatten the image and save it, and then unflatten it again for you. Now if you want to share this with people, you would need this at a much smaller resolution, because at 300 pixels per inch, let's view this as the actual pixels. It's huge. You wouldn't send this in an email. So let's fit this on the screen again. What I would do is I would go to Image, Image Size, and just change the resolution to 72. So let's go back. It was at 300, which means the pixel width was 3,600. My screen, which is a very large screen, is only 1,600 across. So this is almost 3 times, it's 2.5 times larger than my screen would be. So I'm going to make it much smaller, 72 pixels per inch, and now it's going to be 864 pixels wide. I'm going to hit OK. It's going to resize it, figure it all out, and now I'm going to view it at the actual pixel size. This is the actual size that will show up in your email. You can even make it smaller if you want an image size again. I've already changed the resolution to the lowest I want to go, 72. So now I'm just going to change the width and the height. They're linked together, so when I change one, it's going to change the other and maintain the ratio. Let's say I want it at 500 pixels, which is pretty normal for a blog, say. So I'm going to go OK, and this is the actual size that someone would see your page on the website. This is fine for me, so I'm going to go File, Save As, again as a JPEG so that you can see it online. I can't name it Tubing the Canal Copy because that's already been named, so I'm going to add to this name and just call it Mini, so I know it's the smaller copy of that JPEG, and hit Save again. Okay, so once everything's saved, I can go ahead and close out of this. It's going to ask me if I want to save changes to the Photoshop file. No, I don't, because I already saved what I wanted, and I didn't end up using this element, so I'm going to close it down so I can close out of all my programs. So hopefully you were able to see today how to arrange your windows within Photoshop, crop your image using the cropping tool, take a look at the history palette and your snapshots, which are really useful tools, moving images to a new layout that you would use as your page, and then also saving your images. So go ahead and try out a page on your own and see if you can do all of those steps. Next time I'm going to show you some more specifics with the move tool, the resizing, and different things like that. So good luck and happy scrapbooking!